this Meiser Korbanos, the 16th parak. A person promised to bring to the temple as a sacrifice a gadol. What's a gadol mean? An animal that's considered adult, a mature animal, right? As opposed to a katan, vevi katan. We saw right at the beginning of this, the Rambam defines the ages of the various animals, right? What's the difference between a gedi and a keves and an ayil? And what's an egel and what's a par? And what's a gedi and what's a sa'ir? There's actual halachas about this. Lo yatsa. So if a person said he's going to bring a bull, which is a full, an adult male cow, and instead he brought an egel, lo yatsa. Nadar katan. But if he promised to bring as a korban a katan, an egel, let's say, we'vi gadol, but he brought instead a grown animal, yatsa. Doesn't say it's the best thing. Maybe you should actually just keep his halacha. Oh, what's going on? Okay, guess they're having a party. Ketzad, let's see the example. Amar harei alai ola oshlamim keves. He said, I'm going to bring a burnt offering or a peace offering that's a lamb. Keves is usually young, right? Vevi ayil. Instead, he brought an ayil. We saw that the sheep, when they get bigger, they get much bigger, and they also grow horns, right? Yeah, so that's a ram. Oshanadar egel vevi shor. He promised to bring God a calf, and he brought an ox. Gedi vevi sa'ir. A kid goat. Instead, he brought a billy goat. Yatsa, so he's fulfilled his obligation. They grew up. Nadar ola min akfasim, o min ha'ilim. He promised to bring a burnt offering from the lambs or from the rams. Vevi palgas. What's a palgas? That's right in the middle. That's before there's like a month time. We said earlier where it's not, it's grown up but not fully grown up. Palgas is a Greek term, meaning it's not half and half. Remember? So, yeah. Well, Peleg is technically, that's a Hebrew root. That's divided. Now, remember, Peleg kiviyamav nifla haaretz. So that's before Avram Avinu. Yeah, so that's Aramaic. I was like Palgas with the samich attached to it. That makes it Greek. Okay, it's a 4-letter shoresh. Comes from the Greek. Harezas a fake im yatsa yedei nidro o lo yatsa. So he promised to bring a kevis or an ayil, but instead he brought the 1 month time, right in between the two. He hasn't fulfilled his obligation. He promised to bring a burnt offering from the Torim. Omin b'nei hayonah. What is Tor? Tor are the kind that are fully grown pigeons. After what's called a tzihuv. And b'nei yonah are the young turtle doves. So those have to be b'nei yonah, young. After what? No, the son of Yonah means it's young. Yeah, so b'nei yonah are the young. So when you bring turtle doves, the white ones, they have to be young before tzihuv. And torim have to be after tzihuv. Most of the birds you see outside, by the way, are one of two types. Like the common birds around here are all basically torim. Nowadays they call them yonim, but they're halachically torim. They're pigeons. Well, no, they're totally kosher. Not only that, they're fit for sacrifice. Most of the birds you see outside are forms of torim. Most of the birds you see outside are all kosher, by the way. They're not predatory birds. So you see other types of birds around, little non-predatory birds. So those are kosher for consumption. I don't know anybody who eats them nowadays. However, the pigeons you see outside, and also like in the Western world, all over the place, those are kosher birds for consumption. But not only that, they can be brought as sacrifice, as long as they're mature. The little birds you can't bring as korbanos because they're too young. And the b'nei onah are turtle doves. Those are usually white. They're a related species, but they're less common. And those have to be young to be a korban. Nowadays, like in modern Hebrew, they call all of them yonim. And there's another bird around. There's grackle birds around here, the ones that go grack, grack, the black ones. Those are not kosher. Yeah, those are grackle birds, Tristram's grackle. And there's myna birds also. Those are black also, myna birds, but they came from India. They're very recently here. People brought them from pet shops, and then they let them go, and now they're basically taking over the country. It's like the pythons in Florida. They got a nice big snake as a pet. They let it go, and now they're eating up all the wildlands in Florida are being taken over by these gigantic snakes. Pretty bad. Okay, so that's what happened. So he says he's going to bring a korban from these turtle doves or pigeons. What? Now there's parrots flying around, turkeys, and people got from, like I said, pet shops. Try to stop it. Yeah. So you see pretty exotic birds, but not so common. Mostly the birds outside are pigeons. Let's say he brought, turtles and pigeon doves, and it's tchilat tzihuv, the part where the feathers get that shine to them. So one gets puzzled by tzihuv, and one that's the ma'avar. That's the way it becomes kosher. So he can't. That's a suffix if he actually did his mitzvah by bringing these things, because they're right at the age where they don't count. Well, you could bring birds. You need it. You can't do korbanos until you set up a mizbeach, and you need a kohen dressed as a kohen who went to mikvah and then put on the big kahuna and then did, rachatz yodav v'raglov, right? You went to the kior and got some water. Can't just say, here's an animal. Now I'm going to go run to the side of the base of mikdash. You have to. There's some preparatory things. You have to have a man dressed up as kohen gadol, appointed as kohen gadol, wearing the tzitz. Do you have it underneath those? No, because then he's yitur begadim. So, in order to get the temple service going, we'll need minimally to set up the mizbeach properly, and to get a kior for the kohanim to wash their hands. They have to go to mikvah. We have big day kahuna, thank God, and we need someone appointed kohen gadol to be there to supervise and just be present so that what they're doing betuma is accepted. Nirtza. It says if you do the korbanos betuma, so you need the kohen wearing the tzitz. So you need the kohen gadol dressed as kohen gadol present. No, you can't do that either. No, he has to put a kedarka. Then we saw this already. He has to wear. They have to fit properly. He has to be dressed properly with nothing extra, nothing more, nothing less. No socks. It has to be done properly. Okay, trying to, that's the problem that Yehuda Maccabee and his brothers had basically. We would argue that what's the avoda that they first did, just to build the mizbeach took a while. Right, so they couldn't just do korbanos when they got to the base of mikdash. They had to take apart the old mizbeach. It says they took the stones from the mizbeach and they had to put them in geniza because they had to build a new altar. Building an altar is a pretty difficult thing. The base of mikdash's mizbeach was as big as this room, and about the same height also. 32 amos by 32 amos at the base, and it could technically be smaller, but they rebuilt the mizbeach like in the second base of mikdash.
Yeah, but let's say I want to make my own. Make it smaller.
Well, you can't make your own mizbeach; it's forbidden to do so. If you wanted to replace the one in the base of mikdash, so we saw that the Rambam says lichatchila, it has to be as big as it was in the second temple, but it could be technically as small as it was as described in the Mishkan.
Not small.
Not smaller than the one in the Mishkan. The one in the Mishkan was small, and the question is also the height. It's machlokas rishonim, and tanoim. How the height of the mizbeach? What does it mean? 10 amos, and exactly where it was above the line, etc. We saw this earlier. So Ram technically says that you could follow the most lenient opinion among the Tanaim in Shas Chak. Okay, so in order just to get the temple service going, we would need Jews there. We would need to put up a proper kosher altar, which you could build. People know how to do it. It's not the most difficult thing. And we need Kohanim who have gone to the mikvah and put on proper bigdei kahuna and then washed from the kior and know what they're doing, and then they could do the sacrificial service with the Kohen Gadol present. And that's, by the way, what they did when they built the second temple originally, and how they got things going in Hanukkah times. So because of all these difficulties, just to get the sacrificial service going, I would imagine that Kafei Kislev, the only thing that they could have done, which doesn't even require Kohen according to the Rambam, who lights the menorah? Well, technically, if it's in the heichal, but if they brought it outside, they could even let a Yisrael do it, and then just put it back. So understand, lighting the menorah, usually it was done in the heichal, and it was done by a kohen. The Ravad says only b'diavad if a Jew lit it outside in the Azara is a kosher. Not l'chadchila. The point is that this was the easiest thing for them to do. What other avoda could they have done besides lighting the menorah? Oh, a little bit of oil, so at least light the menorah. You have something to do. You can't do korbanos right away. We still have to build a mizbeach, and we don't have the kohen gadol. Maybe we don't have enough bigdei kahuna to do this. We don't have. You could do technically lighting the menorah is not saying bedun betar or betuma. It's not saying that you need a kohen gadol's wearing the tzitz for it to be nirtza. They couldn't put lechem upon him because they first have to build a shulchan, and you can only put the lechem upon him on Shabbos. You have to wait until Shabbos to do it. Torres, where they have to make Torres. What could they have possibly done? What avoda could they have done to the Beis Hamikdash except for daven and light the menorah? So that's why the miracle happened with the menorah. That was what they were able to do, and little by little they cleaned it up and they were able to put it back. We read about in the Mishneh that there was by Herodian times the Beis Hamikdash was an amazing sight. The glory is Godol Yeh Kavod Abayis Hazeh. The Navi had said about the second Beis Hamikdash that the kavod of the second Beis Hamikdash will be better than the first one. It took a few hundred years to realize that nevuah, but the second Beis Hamikdash had many ways it was more magnificent than the first. By the time they got back to this point, so that's something we hope for now. Why are we being held back now? It says Nadar Shachor Vevi Lavan. A person promised to bring animal that was black sheep. He brought a white one. Lavan Vevi Shachor. Zachar Vevi Nekeva. He's promised to bring a male. He brought a female. And he actually ended up bringing a male. Lo Yatsa. If he specified, if he said, for example, if it's an ola, it has to be a male. Let's say it's a peace offering, it could be male or female. And he didn't specify, better not to specify. He said last week, just watch what you say. Better not to dedicate an animal before you're totally ready. Otherwise, you have kashim lying around. So too, say less, then you won't get yourself in trouble. Let's see here. Hanader stam mevi min agdolim she bemin shenadar. Person just says stam, didn't specify at all. He should bring the adult of the species. See, min, this is with a chirik katan. This is very important. Min, written with a yud, is with a chirik malay, and therefore it always has a tam. If this were in the Torah or in the Tanakh, there'd be a tam on this in this accent, and the syllable would be an accented syllable. Whereas all the time, this word from min is pronounced with the chirik katan, and it is always hyphenated with the next word. It never has a tam. It's like f and kol in the Torah. When there's the word f with the segol, it is hyphenated and put. It's not its own standalone word. And min also in this case can be contracted to just mem with let's say ray, or mem with a chirik and a dogation in the next letter. So you have them right here. Mevi min agdolim shebamin shenadar. He brings of the adults of the species that he promised to bring as a korban. Let's say where they live. They that's how they refer to this species. So if he says, I promise to bring a keves, and where he lives, keves is specifically a certain age, and it to the exclusion of, let's say, a ram, so he doesn't have to bring the ram. That's basically what he's saying here. Kitzad nadar olam min abakar. Let's say he says he's going to bring a burnt offering from cattle, bovine. Yavi, sure. So he should bring a full-grown ox. Amar harei olai olah. If he says he's going to bring a burnt offering, im derech anshe makom likrot olah stam. If there they say a burnt offering stam, afilu lo loda oaf, it doesn't refer necessarily to a full-grown animal. It's just a bird. Birds can be small. Mevi preda achat toro ben yonah. So you could bring one bird. It could even be a simple pigeon, which by the way is an adult pigeon, but still it's not such a gadol, or a ben yonah, a young turtle dove. V'im darkan she'en korim olah stam ela leolat bakar. If, let's say where they live, when a person says, I'm going to bring a burnt offering, and it's referring to bakar, once again, cattle, yavi shor. So you should bring a full-grown ox. What's between ox, shor, and par, a bull? Generally speaking, in Torah language, they're the same thing. Except the shor, in context, let's say in the Torah, that's one that's usually used for burden. A person uses it to pull his wagon or his plow, or other purposes, agricultural purposes. And the par is meant for sacrifice or for eating, but it's the same thing. Certain forms of, let's say, English actually make a distinction also. They say the ox is used as burden and the bull is just used for other, maybe just to impregnate the cows, or also for the slaughter. Sometimes ox was specifically castrated. And the problem is, in the Torah, they weren't doing that. Jews are forbidden to castrate bulls and oxen. So in this case, that wouldn't be the distinction. And anything else like these examples that we just saw, a person should know what he's saying. Mishnadar shor o ayil o keves o egel v'chayotz b'hem. So a person promises to bring an ox or a ram or a lamb, or in this case a calf, the rest of them. Lo yavi kachush bioter shebo tohamim. He shouldn't bring the weaker ones. Okay, he shouldn't bring the weak one that he has. Because its value is quite low. It means, literally this means bloods, but even then it doesn't literally mean bloods. It means its value. Monetary value is little. He also doesn't have to bring his fattest, nicest animal of that kind, or the bestest that he has. There's nothing better than that. He should just bring the average one. And if he brought the weakest one or a weak one, he still fulfilled his requirement. It's not a hiddur. By the way, don't fall into this trap. That was Cain's trap. Cain just brought what he had. Hevel brought from Chelvehen, from the fattest ones. Let's say he says, I'm going to bring an ox as a korban. It's worth a maneh. A maneh is 100 dinar, okay? 100 silver dinar. And by the way, we're going to see that Rashi holds that that's like a basic minimum. So he brings an ox that's worth 100 dinar, a maneh, where he is. And this is not including the nesachim. That means the wine that he has to bring with this ox and the meal offering. Remember, he also has to furnish that. Let's say he brings 2 bulls. He says, well, I promised to bring a maneh, 100 dinars worth of ox to the temple. So he shouldn't divide it and say, well, I could actually get 2 oxen for that price. No, he's supposed to find 1 ox that's worth that. He's not Yotzei if he brought 2 oxen. Yeah. So this is very important. You have to know you're going to donate to the temple, to give a korban. It's very important to realize that, take into account also the nesachim, the meal offerings, how much flour and oil and wine need to be brought with this korban. There's actually a list that we've seen before we mentioned it. Let's see, the 6th halacha. Ha'omer shor ze olah. Person says, this ox is to be a burnt offering. Dedicated it. V'nafal bo mum. And now it's suddenly developed a blemish. Oh, blemish kachim. Imratza yavi b'damav shnayim. So if he wants, he's going to redeem this ox. He's now going to sell it off and use the proceeds to actually bring 2 animals. That's not his fault. That's perfectly legitimate. Let's say he had the money. He sold off this blemished ox that was supposed to be a burnt offering. Instead, he brought a ram with that money. That's also he's discharged his obligation. Amar. Well, he shouldn't. He sells it for its value. No, he shouldn't sell it for cheap because then he's ruining it. You sell it. It's only proper when you redeem kachim that you get the full price. And if you're buying it from the temple, they even up the price. They put on a new percentage. Whenever you do redemption, you're not supposed to do it for cheap. Very important. People who want to help him get his money back. It's sort of they help someone out. He's like he has an ox that he can't use for anything anymore because it's holy, so it has to be redeemed. So someone who has the money says, "Okay, I was going to slaughter an ox anyways. I'll help him out, and I'll buy the ox for slaughter. I have a wedding coming up, and I'll help him recoup his losses. And that way he could actually discharge obligation by buying a new korban they could bring. Amar shnei shwarim elu olah. Let's say he had 2 oxen, both. These 2 are to be a burnt offering. When a fal bahem mum, well mumim, each one gets a mum. Imratzah, he wants yavi b'dmehem echad. He sells off these 2 oxen, and then with that, the proceeds, the money he gets from that, he buys one animal, and brings that as a korban.
Can you make a business out of it?
Well, he shouldn't do business with kachim. Business of what?
Sells the ox, which is very expensive. Buys 2 oxen with that money, makes a moon and goes.
No, he's not allowed to make a mumim. No, mum happened. Olav and afal bo mum. Let's say a ram. It was supposed to be a burnt offering. Nafal bo mum. He got a mum. Imratzah yavi b'damav keves. He could sell this isle, and it is expensive keves. This is a regular isle, and even though keves is smaller, it's younger than an isle. It hasn't grown into an isle yet. Still, if that was its value, so he brings a keves. The chenim nadar keves v'nefsal. Let's say he used the word nefsal instead of nafal bomum. He promised to bring this keves, and it got disqualified. So he could switch it. The value then goes toward a ram. That's also fine. Amar hare alai olah. A person has promised. This is the 7th halacha. Hold on 1 second. I have a mark over here. I wrote here. Rashi said a minimum. A maneh is 100 dinar. Rashi says the minimum for this thing is 100 dinar. So wait a second. 423 grams of silver is a dinar. 423 grams of silver. That's how much 100 dinar is by today's measurements. So a maneh is 423 grams of silver. How much is that worth nowadays? Each dinar is 4.23 grams of silver. By the way, they've dug up old ancient dinars, so they know this. Okay, dinar was the common currency. It's a Greek term. Okay, there's more Hebrew terms like shekels and the bekas and all that. So, and then zuz is Aramaic, but dinar is the Greek term, dinare. So it's a certain amount of silver, and we know how much these things are. You find in museums, the coin collectors have them. In Israel, you're not allowed to own them. If you dig up such a thing, the antiquities people will take it away from you, unless you're Moshe Dayan or other criminals. Then you get to keep it. So I checked on the 9th of March, Cheshvan, 5784, 423 grams of silver was 313 American dollars. How much is a dollar worth? Dollars are going out of incredible inflation, but 2 months ago, this was worth $313. So what kind of animal can you get? Minimum, according to Rashi, is a maneh. Can you get a lamb for $313? A lamb or something, whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. A gold dinar is 25 regular dinars. Yeah. Well, no, if you use silver, the point of using precious metals is that precious metals are not given to inflation.
Yeah, but the same dinar that they bought
they can buy with the yes, if you had silver has maintained its value, as does gold. $313. But in 20 years from now, when we're talking about this, the silver dinar will still get you a maneh, will still get you a lamb, but $313 will not. $313 will be worth less. Okay, you're 25.
Yeah, but then it's going to be more. Like today, you can get with the money.
I know you could always get it in all times and places. That's the point of using silver. You're proving the point. The dollar is useless, and other fiat currencies are useless because they keep inflating. We're going to talk about this 200 years from now. We're going to look back at this. So we'll say, yes, a certain amount of silver can get me a lamb, but the dollars, it's the equivalent of 2,000 American dollars. Okay. And by the way, gold dinar is 4 gold dinars is a maneh. You could either take 100 silver dinars or 4 gold dinars also comes out to a maneh. So gold is a lot more value than silver. Gold is like in America, they have $1,000 bills. Okay, you can have dollar bills and $20 bills, or you could have $1,000 bill. It's like a higher denomination. And by the way, this is a shout out to Rafi. Why is it that gold and silver are such good holders of value? Because you can't counterfeit it. You can't just make it all you want. Problem with money is you can just print it. Made money. Okay, now it doesn't have value. Gold and silver you have to work for. Someone has to mine it from the ground. You can't just make it. And it's also in demand. People want it because they could use it for trading these things as a holder of value. Gold and silver have always been used, and they will continue to be used because of this, their durability. And by the way, they don't. You can't burn them. The only way you could destroy gold and silver is what? Basically throwing it, like Chazal say, throw into Yam HaMelach, right? Or like we saw the rich people do a few weeks ago. We saw rich people are eating gold. They grind up gold into gold flakes and they put on their food. So eventually it gets flushed out into the toilet, fine. But it's unless you're foolish enough to just destroy your gold like that, you will, it stays.
Yeah, but you dig up so much.
No, you can't dig up so much. No, it doesn't. You can. It's so much effort goes into human effort goes into producing gold and silver.
Diamonds is based on you have to dig it up.
Diamonds aren't being inflating so much. You have to put in a lot of labor to get diamonds. They're also good. Yes, they have slave labor getting diamonds, but still, thank God, still you can't just press a button and make more money. No. The gold and silver, no matter how much slave labor you have, there's still a limited amount of how much rate that you can produce gold and silver. Thank God. At least there's some stability in this world. Everything is done because I'll believe in the silver standard. As long as you're not, what are they doing to inflate silver, by the way, in Yeshayahu and Navi's time? And also in later second base Mikdash times, Romans and Greeks did this. It was a mistake. What'd they do? They said the silver pieces that they're minting, not 100% silver. They started putting tin into it and all that, dross, so that the silver was not really silver. The gold wasn't really gold. Kaspei chayal sigim, right? So that's bad. That's how they were able to inflate silver, by just making counterfeit silver. And by the way, you can get this. You get real silver coins. You ever see real American silver currency? When the coins hit each other, they clang. They're heavy. Nowadays, the coins that they use, most currencies that you get here in Israel and in America, those are made for cheaper metals. Those metals aren't precious metals. They're not worth their weight in whatever they're made out of. So they have a different sound to them when they clang against each other. You notice that? You've seen real silver coins? God willing. So when your firstborn son was born, your wife is not the daughter of a Kohen or a Levi? Okay. So when your son is born, you'll do a pidyon ben. You'll get the special pidyon ben coins. They're actually silver. You'll feel that they're different than regular coins. Okay, so this is something very important to know. So that's the standard. Amar harei alai olav v'fi shor v'nignav poter atzmo b'seh. Let's say a person said he got to bring an olah, and then he said this ox is going to be for that purpose. I have to bring an olah. So it's not that he says this ox specifically. He first had a chiyuv to bring an olah. They found an ox for it, and then the ox was stolen. Okay, Ishmaelite marauders came across the border and stole his ox. Poterat's mobiseh. So he has to bring a burnt offering. So he'll bring a lamb. It's worth a lot less, but his promise was to bring a burnt offering. It's not his fault that the ox was stolen. Amar shor zev damav alai olah hukba. If he says this ox and by its value is what I have to bring as a korban, samud lamadad, basically. He said I have to bring this ox or its value because it's valuable. This ox is worth $1,000. And I'm bringing it as an olah, hukba. Oh, now he said it. Vim nifsalf. So if the ox gets disqualified, has a mum, lo yaviv damav elashor. So when he sells that ox, he has to make sure to bring another ox. He gets the money for that ox. He has to make sure to bring another ox. He can't say, well, I'll just buy a very nice set or something like that. And that brings us to the conclusion for this week. Pray for speedy victory. Have a victorious Hanukkah. Shabbat Shalom. May we see this year the promise of the Maccabees come true in our days also. May we learn the actual lessons of Hanukkah and achieve what they achieved. Hopefully even more than they achieved. In the proper manner, yeah, like ka'alocha. Yeah. Be good, everybody.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.